So, whatever happened to that classic yet strange, not quite sci-fi, not quite horror 1970 film, The Island of Dr. Moreau? Let's find out. Movies,
Music and monsters.
Hey guys, Dan Monroe here, talking about movies, music, and monsters. By the way, this video is sponsored by Squarespace, but more on that later. Before we get started, I'd like to thank Kelly Mark Delcom of Block 4 Studios and Chris Blaine for supplying a ton of photos and information about this film that I now get to share with all of you guys. What is the law? Not to walk on all fours. What is the law? Not to shed blood. The law has been broken. You know, as a kid, and I mean like 9 or 10 years old, there weren't a lot of films that really, I guess, scared me, but there were definitely a few. The Omega Man with Charlton Heston certainly put me on the edge of my seat. A really odd black and white film called The Brain That Wouldn't Die really freaked me out. And then there's The Island of Dr. Moreau from 1977. I'm really not sure whether it was the extremely bizarre makeup effects or maybe the fact that we had woods out behind our house as a kid that would just make my imagination go wild, but there was definitely something about this film that to this day remains one of my all-time favorites. No, the film didn't have the biggest budget, and no, it wasn't the Hollywood blockbuster the studio was counting on, but there is so much to love about this film, I don't even know where to begin. Well, actually, I do. Let's just start back at the beginning. So sit back, relax, grab your favorite God-playing psychopathic doctor and a bucket of stale popcorn, and let's dive in. The Island of Dr. Moreau was originally a novel by English author H.G. Wells, which was first published way back in 1896. The novel is set in the year 1887 and follows, very much like the movie, the story of Edward Prendick, shipwrecked on Moreau's Island, a mad scientist who creates human-like hybrid creatures from a wide variety of animals. The novel itself deals with a bunch of different themes ranging from pain and cruelty to moral responsibility and human identity. H.G. Wells himself described it as an exercise in youthful blasphemy.
Essentially what the story is a morality tale. It says, rather specifically, how far can you allow the scientific mind to grow or to move ahead at the risk of the dehumanization of the human being as proper? And indigenous in that kind of an approach, when power becomes such an important matter to them, it becomes totally corruptible. This is what happens to the character Monroe.
Then, in 1932, the Wells novel was adapted into a sci-fi horror film called Island of Lost Souls, directed by Earl C. Kenton and produced by Paramount Pictures. Again, the story remains fairly similar to the book, other than some of the names. This time, Edward Parker, played by Richard Arlen, finds himself stranded on the island with Dr. Moreau, this time portrayed by renowned stage and screen actor Charles Laughton. The film even featured Bela Lugosi as the sayer of the law, and quite frankly, this film is actually really, really good and deserves its own episode, which I will probably get to one of these days, but right now we're just talking about the 1977 adaptation. This was the second of 3 H.G. Wells films being distributed by American International Pictures, the first being The Food of the Gods in 1976, and then Empire of the Ants in 77, putting the Island of Dr. Moreau right smack square in the middle. You know, I don't know about you guys, but I thought the cast of this film was so freaking great. Burt Lancaster as Dr. Moreau. I mean, come on, an absolutely incredibly diabolically brilliant interpretation of the character.
In this particular case, the story specifically deals with a character who is attempting to invade what we now know as the DNA, the molecular structure, the genetic structure. The character, Monroe, was attempting to change animals into men. He was seeking, in other words, the secret of life.
Michael York was just fantastic. The girl, Barbara Carrera, was okay, but Nigel Davenport as Montgomery was excellent casting, and they even got Richard Basehart as the sayer of the law. I mean, come on, how cool is that? Michael York, now playing the once again renamed character of Andrew Braddock, actually turned down the film more than once before he finally agreed to do it, but he wasn't the only one. David Carradine also turned down the role, and I'm not really sure why. Originally, Scottish actor Ian Bannon was cast as Montgomery, only to later be replaced by Nigel Davenport just prior to filming, and again, I'm not really sure why, but if you know, let me know. American actor and director Don Taylor, who also directed Escape from the Planet of the Apes in 1971 and Damien, Omen 2 in 78, had a very specific vision for the film and originally planned to shoot the movie in either the Canary Islands or Malta, but eventually decided on the Virgin Islands after, and this is pretty cool, the governor and the Chamber of Commerce from the Virgin Islands actually lobbied to get the film made there. Filming of The Island of Dr. Moreau began on December 13th, 1976 with an estimated budget of $7.2 million. There were multiple actors hired to portray the human-animal hybrids in the film, or as Dr. Moreau called them, humanimals, which required a team of 12 makeup artists to apply the prosthetic makeup, which took over 4 hours to put on, starting at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and over an hour to take off at the end of the day.
Well, I get up at about 3:30 in the morning. I arrive on the set at 4:30. Then it's 4 solid hours in the makeup chair, and we're ready for shooting about 8:30.
The sayer of the law, Emling, Boar Man, Bull Man, Hyena Man, Lion Man, Bear Man, Tiger Man. No, not that Tiger Man. This Tiger Man. And who was responsible for these brilliant makeup effects? Well, 2 of the absolute best makeup artists in the industry at the time, John Chambers of Planet of the Apes fame, along with makeup artist Tom Berman, and a huge team of additional makeup artists designed what were called overlapping makeup appliances to give the actors underneath the ability to have at least some type of facial expressions. There were actually more makeup artists on set each day than there were actual actors.
We had 4.5 hours in the morning, and then during the day, sometimes we'd add a character here or there. And on some of the characters, we had 2 people working on it. And some of the characters, 1 person could handle, depending on how extensive the makeup was for that character.
It's really odd, and I can't really explain this, but there seems to be some type of ongoing discussion, like online, about whether or not John Chambers actually had any involvement in the film at all. Well, he's in the credits. Take a look. So, if you still don't believe it, then back to the House of Pain. There were a ton of real animals, like, the dangerous ones on the set throughout the course of filming. And at one point, during the fight with the Bengal tiger, the tiger actually took the stuntman's head in his jaws, but luckily, apparently the stuntman was wearing a fiberglass helmet, which probably saved his life. There was a huge group of trainers on set at all times to make sure that no harm whatsoever came to any of the actors, or the animals for that matter, and some of the human-animal interactions within this movie were just freaking awesome. It's kind of cool in the scene when Michael York, as Braddock, is in the cage trying to remember his past. He says, "I was born on March 27th, 1881. Funny thing is, Michael York's actual birthday was March 27th. The musical score by Lawrence Rosenthal was, in my opinion, very unique. So many haunting and slightly disturbing themes running throughout the course of the film that, to me, perfectly matched the mood and the amazing visuals that we got to see on the screen. It's kind of strange. There were originally like 3 or 4 different endings planned for the film, including one very bizarre idea where the Maria character, who was infused with the genetics of a cat, was to literally give birth at the end to a kitten. Oddly, that particular ending was heavily favored by the producer John Temple Smith, but Michael York flatly refused to have anything to do with a movie with an ending like that, and director John Taylor claimed that the footage was never shot. But there was apparently another ending filmed where Maria, in her final shot, turns towards the camera as the rescue ship approaches, where she is transforming back into her cat creature character. And for whatever reason, they opted not to go with that ending. I wish they would have. That would have been pretty frickin' cool. You know, I really can't imagine the difficulties in not only navigating through the extremely dense forests of Monroe's Island, but even worse is trying to navigate through the hundreds and hundreds of options for website companies claiming they do it all with one click, all in one place. But if you've ever thought about it, you know, having your own website to promote a brand, sell a product, anything really, well, Squarespace is a freaking awesome company to help you do just that. Super quick, super simple. One thing that makes it so easy is a brand new guided design system called Squarespace Blueprint. You can choose from super professional looking layouts, then personalize them to your own needs, automatically optimized for every device. And if you're selling something, it's even easier, with tons of really powerful payment tools where you can accept credit cards, PayPal, Apple Pay, making checkout seamless and simple. You can upload your own video content to your own video library, sell exclusive content like memberships, courses, music, or ebooks, purchase the domain and launch your very own website all in no time, all in one place. It's super simple, super convenient. Simply check out squarespace.com for a free trial, and even better, you can save 10% off your first purchase of a domain or website by visiting squarespace.com/Dan Monroe. So yeah, Squarespace. Quick, easy, and designed to sell. And now back to the island. The Island of Dr. Moreau premiered on July 13th, 1977 to somewhat mixed reviews. Okay, let's be honest, they were mostly all negative, but you have to keep in mind that audiences at the time, just 2 months earlier, were exposed to the original Star Wars, which literally put the industry and the mindset of the audience in a completely different galaxy. I mean, in a way, it's not really fair. And I honestly think that if this film had come out in the late 60s or early 70s, the response would have been, I don't know, so much better. But that's not the way it went, and that's showbiz. Well, the Island of Dr. Moreau came and it went, and yeah, that was pretty much the end of the Island of Dr. Monroe. Moreau, more or less. Well, there was a hip-hop group in 1990 called House of Pain who got their name referencing this film, so there's that. There was a comic book adaptation released by Marvel Comics, which actually ended with the unused scene from the film where Maria reverts back into a cat creature. The film was released on VHS way back in the 1980s. It even got a release on video disc. Oh my God, remember those? Movies, like on a record being read by a needle, DVD in 2001, and finally in glorious high definition on the Blu-ray release in 2015. Now, as far as any of the original props and costumes, there's a little bit, but not too much. In 2011, Kelly Mark Delcom of Block 4 Studios restored 4 original screen-used Berman makeups, including the Bullman, the Wolfman, and this guy, the Boarman, which are currently in the hands of a private collector, but holy cow, it sure is awesome to see that these legendary makeups still exist today. In the summer of 2023, there was a collection of John Chambers' original prosthetics that hit the auction block at Prop Store, including facial appliances, hands, teeth, that surprisingly didn't draw much interest with only one bidder with a high bid of like $1,200. Okay, but what about the reboots, remakes, and God help us reimaginings? Well, there was definitely one back in 1996 starring Val Kilmer and Marlon Brando. I remember back in the day I watched this version several times. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. And I'm not going to spend valuable time with you guys on this channel bashing movies with unbridled negativity. If that's your thing, that's fine. Believe me, there's a ton of other channels that already do that. Okay, the CGI was pretty bad, but keep in mind, this was very early CGI. But there is one thing they got absolutely 100% right. Real actors performing in real makeup on a real location, certainly something you would never see in Hollywood today in 2024. Was it a great film? No. Was it perfect? No. But if you're in the right mindset, is it kind of fun to watch with a bucket of stale popcorn? Yeah. Yes, this film had lots of creepy, exciting moments, fantastic actors, and location shooting, but on a deeper level, this is a morality tale. The essence of the original H.G. Wells novel and this adaptation is simply the question of, does man have the right, even with all his science and technology, to play God? Great question, great story. But hey, don't take my word for it, maybe just my recommendation, and check it out. The acting is top-notch. The physical makeup is outstanding. The locations and cinematography are really well done, and the musical score is one of my personal favorites. The island of Dr. Moreau helped pave the way in Hollywood history for a huge onslaught of classic sci-fi horror films in the 1980s, including They Live, Videodrome, Reanimator, Critters, The Fly, From Beyond, The Thing, Saturn III, Killer Clowns from Outer Space, and so many more. We could be here all day, but that, my friends, is the topic of another video. I really hope you guys enjoyed that deep dive into the island of Dr. Moreau, and if you did, and you like this kind of stuff, please consider subscribing to the channel. I've got a whole bunch of new videos coming up really soon that I know you guys are just gonna dig. And please feel free to stop back anytime as we, together, continue our conversation on movies, music, and monsters. Movies,
Music and monsters.